last time we left off with the Grand Theft Auto series review, it was not looking so good for the series. The first two games were top-down, and they were released to somewhat positive reception, more of a lukewarm response. I personally didn't like the first one, but I thought the second one was pretty good, pretty okay. It was kind of average. And then everything for the series changed, and it flipped not only the series' future, but the future of open-world gaming as a whole on its knees, upside down. That's right. November of 2001, a revolutionary title was released, and that is Grand Theft Auto 3, right here. Now, you wouldn't know it playing it today, because pretty much everything on this disc has been done to death in every other open world game, and it's been done better. But this is the first ever game to do it in such a profound way, and it was practically perfection back then, back in the day in 2001. And that's basically what I'm going to be basing my review off of. Yes, I will go into how the game has not aged very well, but I wanted to go back and play the game as if I was first playing it when it first came out. Now, when I first played this game, though, actually in 2008, it was the first Grand Theft Auto game that I ever owned, and it was the only thing that I could play at the time because I was 15 and my parents didn't want me having it in the first place. I had these little ceiling tiles that I would slip the game into, you know, like just like that, and they never knew the wiser. So, basically, with that, I had a spot for all of my mature-rated titles, but I couldn't get a hold of them that easily. I had to have my friend, whose parents let him get M games, get them for me. So, that's how I got it. And when I first played it, I had already been an experienced player of Vice City and San Andreas, so I was thinking, what the hell? Why is this so bare? Why is this so basic? Well, I will tell you. First playing this in 2001, you would be expecting something as in, like, along the lines of, say, Grand Theft Auto 1, Grand Theft Auto 2, just, you know, top-down, very simplistic, very kind of wonky control setup as well, just like Grand Theft Auto 2. There is, in fact, a top-down perspective in Grand Theft Auto 3 here. You can actually hit the select button to toggle through many different perspectives, but for all intents and purposes, this game right here, yes, I know I keep grabbing it and picking it up and shoving it in the camera, shoving it in your faces, see Grand Theft Auto 3, this game is the first game to feature a sandbox-style 3D, just full-on 3D camera. Now, I can understand why the first two games were top-down, because it's kind of given off this helicopter chase-like vibe that I didn't really understand until I put this game into top-down perspective, where I actually started to get why they did it that way. But for all intents and purposes, like I said, it works to their advantage to do it this way now, with the full-on 3D camera. Go wherever you want, roam wherever you want, absolutely seamless, perfected gameplay, basically, and it's just one of those things where it had never been done before. This game is chocked full of missions, different collectibles, and different weapons and items that you can use to your advantage. Now, the story is a little bit light, and the dialogue is admittedly very wooden, even especially compared to the games that were coming out at the time, you know what, with Metal Gear Solid 2 and Devil May Cry and Final Fantasy. Yeah, don't even get me started on Titus Una laughing sequence, but that is for a different video. Grand Theft Auto 3, for all intents and purposes, basically revolutionized the open world formula, and it has been perfected and tweaked into the absolute machine it is today, where pretty much every single game has to be open world. This was the prototype for that open world. If not for this game, games on the market today would be very, very different. I mean, games back then traditionally still used a level format. I mean, yeah, I know Ocarina of Time had an open world, but it still relied heavily on level structure, on dungeons, on progression. This game, GTA 3, basically just threw you in the sandbox and said, okay, there's a mission over here, there's a mission over here, there's a mission over here. Which reminds me, missions are not relegated to simply telephones anymore. You actually go into various mob bosses' hideouts and lairs and different places such as casinos and even a bathroom stall. to find missions from people, from different people. And it's not just the same mob bosses over and over again like it was in the first two games. So basically, it's kind of like the second game where you gain the respect of one mob and then or one gang, I should say. You gain the respect of one gang and then you transfer that respect over to another, and you're following a progressive storyline. This is different from the first two games, as the first two games didn't feature a story at all whatsoever. This time it puts you in the shoes of Claude, a silent protagonist who is left for dead by his ex-girlfriend, who runs off to join, as later you will find out, the cartel, who is against pretty much every single gang in the game. And this is basically starting a new era of stories. Every single game up to Vice City Stories would continue on in this canon, in this timeline. And it's really interesting to go back and actually play this game after playing all the other ones. So, with this time period, with these events in place, Claude has to jump from one gang's loyalty to another, playing off their weaknesses, even going as far as to assassinate gang members or gang leaders from gangs he's actually affiliated with under the guise of assassinating them from someone else's gang. So it's really interesting playing off their strengths and weaknesses. You're like the middleman, basically. You're a double agent, or you're a free agent, I should say, and everyone is none the wiser. They have no idea what's going on. So it's really interesting, and it's a really kind of an interesting story. I do like the story a little bit better than Vice City from what I can remember, but I will let you know in my Vice City review whenever that comes out. But I did like the story, but the dialogue is just, it's so wooden, and it's so cartoony that it's hard to take seriously sometimes. Yes, it does ruin the immersion factor of the missions, but honestly, who plays GTA for the missions aside from GTA 5? I mean, honestly, the story didn't really become an interesting factor until that point for GTA 5, in my opinion at least, but you guys might think differently. I didn't really play for the story whenever I first played this game. I've actually played to open up Staunton Island and Shoreside Vale. Liberty City is absolutely fantastically done here. 2 out of the 3 parts are Portland and Staunton Island, and these 2 parts absolutely play a fantastic role in the story, and they're very big, very open, and then you get into Shoreside Vale, which, as far as I can tell, is very unfinished. I mean, I say this not because it's not polished or there's a lot of glitches. It is very polished, and it doesn't have a lot of glitches, but it's very desolate, I want to say. It's very barren. It doesn't have a lot of stuff to do. And I did read in a dev diary that it was very unfinished, and that they meant for there to only be 2 areas to Liberty City. So, with that 3rd area added on with the airport, that's really the only reason to go there, is for the airport and missions from Staunton Island that take you over to Shoreside Vale. There aren't a lot of missions in Shoreside Vale, regrettably, and it is the final area that you can unlock in the game. So, I have no idea what they were doing there. It just seems a little bit unfinished in that regard. That is really my only complaint about GTA 3, aside from the fact that the dialogue is very wooden, and the graphics don't really measure up to the PlayStation 2's capabilities. That said, this game did not age very well at all. It's still fun to play, but it didn't age very well, even in terms of, like, replayability, replay value, compared to Vice City, San Andreas, and above, especially San Andreas and on. I mean, you play GTA 5, and you come back to GTA 3, you're wondering, okay, why are the controls so stiff? Why does he run so funny? Why are the proportions off? I mean, you're fixated on all these little details that shouldn't matter, and that wouldn't matter if you were playing it when it was new, but it's easily noticeable, and it throws off the entire game sometimes. Yes, it is fun, but, you know, it hasn't aged very well. But I am going to be scoring it as if I would be playing it back in 2001. So I am going to give this game a 9.5 out of 10. It is absolutely wonderful. I loved every second of playing it and revisiting this game, and honestly, I hadn't played it in almost 7 years, I want to say, since 2008, summer of 2008. That's when I beat it and moved on to San Andreas, and I never really went back. I've gone back to Vice City a few times, but I've never gone back to 3 simply because it is so basic, and everything from this point forward would be refined and perfected unto the open world machine we have today. So, 9.5 out of 10. This is a very good game. If you're going to play this one, or if you're going to play any of the GTAs, this is the perfect entry point to the series. It's not as weird and wonky as the top-down predecessors, and it doesn't necessarily have all the cool features of Vice City and San Andreas, so you're pretty much smack dab in the middle. And this is the perfect entry point because you're not going to be expecting any of that stuff, like I was when I played it for the first time after beating Vice City and playing San Andreas. So, in that regards, this is Midnight Strike 3625. Play GTA 3 first if you haven't played any of them. Keep calm and rock on.